I caught onto Otaku Elf very late from last year, but it really grew on me. The antics of an immortal elf, less deity, more regular hobbyist, with a healthy amount of history, was endearing. But the show also teased an exploration of immortality and how relationships are affected, and it didn't stop at just what was present in the episode. No matter how much they played into the serenity of their peaceful everyday lives, no matter if they decided to peel back the curtain of mortality, we would get the slow build-up of a harmony tangled in the guitar's strings, adamant in keeping rhythm, as the bass, the drums, and the ever-present chimes coalesce as if dancing lights towards a gentle embrace. The ending song is created by Cody Lee, a rock band that was formed in 2018, with their music having appeared in TV dramas, films, and now anime. For me, their music is an interesting mixture of songs with an upbeat energy and an aesthetic of playfulness, such as Alien and Sweltering Nights, or the humorously named Chilled Chinese Noodles with Green Onion. But their other half is more personal and sentimental, with an energy that is calming and relaxing, even with the lyrics in mind. For example, Sakura Machi, released in April 2020, details the band's lead, Hibiki Takahashi's experience with where he was born, with the lyrics exploring his hometown, evoking a strong sense of nostalgia and the passage of time. The song itself has a much slower rhythm and feels laid back, as if to really let the atmosphere soak through its imagery. 1096, released in February 2023, likewise has a very personal tint, going over Takahashi's experience in high school, written when he had dropped out, detailing 1096 days, or 3 years. He opens up about how hopeless he felt during that time. The one thing that stood out to me was that he doesn't necessarily dwell on negativity. He wrote honestly about his feelings, not covering up the good or the bad. The lyrics reflect this, ending not on the loss he experienced, but an earnest thanks to that time. And for much of the song, it also takes on a rather calming continence, with a somber piano carrying the melody. And even as instruments are added, and it grows in complexity, it manages to find its way back to a somber demeanor. The amount of personal reflection poured into their songs really made me appreciate Cody Lee's sound even more, and I found myself gravitating to these sentimental pieces, and this level of reflection was present even for the music they've done for dramas and movies. In Sayonara, written for the TV drama Hideyoshi Working at a Startup Company, one of the key lyrics is the title, Sayonara. But Takahashi wrote how he didn't want that word to take on its usual meaning. Instead, he wanted something much more warm, and wanted it to feel like the color orange, like the setting sun, like the color of a crosswalk at dawn, like greenery beyond the ice. It's a goodbye coming undone, which I think is reflected in how the lyrics depict a departure, but not the finality of the departure. And again, ending on thanks. All of this is in conjunction with the work itself. In Boys Don't Cry, written for the drama Renai no Susume, Takahashi had apparently read the script before filming and created the piece based on one of the characters. The ensuing song, all about the idea of expressing and grappling with the idea of love, is reflective of that character, who is described as struggling to deal with love. Seeing how personal Cody Lee's songs can be, and how closely they work with the source material, made it clear just how important their process and ideology was for Otaku Elf. One of my favorite parts about Otaku Elf was the brief moments the show interjected the underlying themes and emotionality found within Elda and Koito. Takahashi remarks on this as well, as he says how the story has a daily life in which not only happy and fun, but also negative emotions such as sad and lonely coexist. And I think the song was able to tap into this complexity. A lot of this stems from their lyrics and their perspective. When we're given the weightier emotionality of the story, it's often from Koito's perspective. Like in episode 3, during Koito's succession ritual, we stay within Koito's thoughts, even during moments where it may feel obvious to switch, like when they hear the song dedicated to Elda, we still stay with Koito. And at the very end, when Elda makes a comment about Koito's past, we still end on Koito, even though it was Elda who made that observation. In my favorite episode, 6, they go through another important ritual, and as Elda reminisces about the past, we get this really powerful observation from Koito as she realizes that Elda seems different. It's not something we get from Elda's dots. She hardly talks about what she feels. But Koito understands something deep-seated. It's Elda's moment to have, it's the feelings that are within her, and her grappling with immortality, but it's not from her perspective. Even at the very start, episode 1, we get this really poignant realization from Koito that Elda might have her own fears and pain due to the tides of time. It's a really beautiful moment where the overarching theme of Elda's character comes out, but it's not her perspective. This is where the lyrics for the ED comes into play, where it adds an unseen layer to the show, as it's written primarily from Elda's perspective. The song starts with a playful description of walking on the shadows cast from electric wires. But at the end of that line is the declaration of not wanting to forget the warmth of everyday life. For someone like Elda, that checks out. Most of the show is centered on Elda's shenanigans. Her childish playfulness is reflected in this imaginative play, but there's also small moments of seriousness. Elda never mentions it directly, but it's implied in how often she gives her history lessons that she actively is holding onto all of these memories. The lyrics here give her a chance to directly express that. The next few lines are representative of how needy Elda can be. But I think with how these lyrics are sung, and how the notes are extended, make it more serious than how Elda portrays that neediness. It's not just her asking for hugs and conversation because she just wants to mess around, but it's more related to longing, something that Elda wants to cherish for as long as she can. So those words and the song extends those notes for as long as it can, giving off a sense of yearning and even loneliness. Those isolated sections where the words are stretched out allow only the soft backing of the drums as rhythm, with the main instruments harmonizing onto a single point, isolated. Again, it's not something we see. Whenever Elda is shown to be needy, constantly wanting Koito's attention, or just throwing tantrums, it's very humorous, and not as aware of what could be underlying that. The comedy of her character is nice, but from the things unsaid, it's not just that, and the song does a good job of letting that side be known. There's also one key part of the song that I really enjoy that's represented here, and in other parts. It's these chimes. These are generally high notes, letting their sounds ring into the song. It's most prominent right at the start. And in general, I really like their inclusion. It mimics this idea of dancing lights, the title of the song, as they ring throughout the instruments weaving in between everything else as if they were dancing. And of course, it is a light sound. Bad pun aside, these dancing lights are an actual part of the show. It's Elda's elf spirits that she uses to communicate, and it's also in the ending animation. And here, we get those chimes spluttered throughout. Right after the song creates this longing and isolation of Elda's neediness, a slight flourish of chimes are heard. This makes it very clear how close the song is in Elda's perspective, but also enhances any sections they appear in. It makes sense that in the section where she's being needy, that we hear those dancing lights, because that's exactly what happens in the show. It's as if this is Elda speaking out to Koito. And this can apply to any section with these chimes, putting the lyrics and underlying truth of Elda's perspective directly into contention with the show. Not only can we see that longing found in the lyrics, that yearning in her neediness, but we are reminded of each moment in the show where that potentially appears, recontextualizing the story in a very meaningful way. The chorus is quite fruitful in continuing this exploration of Elda's feelings. Here, the end is talked about. As Elda lives on, she is lamenting how she won't be able to see those around her, in this case Koito. This is Elda's one chance to get her word in, and she directly mirrors what Koito had figured out in episode 1. That Elda does think about these things, that there is pain in continuing to live beyond your friends, that no matter how much the world changes around her, she'll remain exactly as she always has. The melancholic image of Koito holding onto Elda's hand at the very end of her life is not the most joyous image, but due to the song's continence of its upbeat instrumentation, it's not dreary, it is painful. It is sad, but The song doesn't laud it as melodramatic, the song keeps the tone as gentle as it can. What helps further this juxtaposition is in the very subtle backing with the piano that we can hear at the start of the phrases. It's not exactly the same dancing lights as before, but I think the small flourishes of notes help give off a similar impression. It's a light sound to fill in the gaps, but it's precisely because it's such a gentle and light sound that it really fills the song with an uplifting and hopeful feel. And I think that's a key part to Elda's character and perspective. Yes, there is that truth and reality that she has to grapple with, but just like in the show, what we hear, what we see, is not that at all. The ending song is able to reveal those hidden aspects, making her character a lot more thoughtful than she might come across. One of the key things about Cody Lee and this song is that there are two sets of vocals. The TV version starts with Ozaki Reno singing, the secondary vocalist for the band. While the full song leads up into her part. Regardless of where these vocals are placed, I think the thematic fretting is still present. Whenever she sings, the perspective changes briefly towards Koito, and it mirrors episode 6, where she talks about that occasional look on her face. It ends with this wanting from Koito to be there for Elda in the same way that Elda wants to have as many memories with everyone. This short moment where we switch to Koito's perspective is really keen in making the song an active conversation. Elda is addressing Koito, telling her and explaining to us how she feels, and for a moment, Koito is able to respond. What really pushes this back and forth is precisely the change in vocalist, as Reno doesn't have any other solo section, making her part stand out in its importance. And it feels very deliberate why she was given these lyrics in particular, mirroring what Koito would and does say in the show, and in part, melding with Elda's perspective. And as the song comes to a close, it ends on the scenery of the setting, of a sunset over the Sumida River, over the slivers of evening, beautifully described as the month of May between buildings. We also get Elda's final rumination about how she'll always remain the same despite the world moving past her. And at the same time, because of how light the song is, how the chords and instrumentation are so comforting, those words don't immediately come off as despairing. Instead, it feels like acceptance, and it's perhaps acceptance that lets Elda be so carefree in the show. It's an acceptance that lets Elda never really have perspective or interiority because she has already come so far, and she'd rather things be a bit more warm, a bit more happy. And so, even as the lyrics end, we're slowly brought out by the song's gentle melody. The lyrics of the song, from Elda's perspective, paints the world as she sees it, of the daily fun, of the pain and acknowledgement of mortality, and her need to make as many memories as she can. It's a layer of Elda that we never outwardly get from her. It's something we can briefly understand from Koito, yet in this song, we're able to get an entire dimension fleshed out in conjunction with the show. As a companion piece, I think it really brings home the experience of watching these characters goof off, having their carefree joys and appreciating what it means to do so, and how the characters are able to do this despite having to accept the inevitability of loss. The show itself may not dive into that in direct ways, but the ending song gives it plenty of space to go deeper and to reveal those warm dancing lights. And that was the end of the video. This one took a bit longer, mostly because I got busy with other video editing projects, a lot of which I tweet about, but also I've made a playlist for all the videos that I've made for other people or helped edit for other people, so kind of keeping myself accountable for why I'm taking long in between videos, but hopefully I'm going to try to pick up the pace, just because I don't really want to leave you guys MIA. But hopefully this was an interesting look at one of my favorite endings, if not my favorite ending from last year, and the show itself is also really good, I think. I really like it. Other than that, I am of course way more active on places like Twitter, where I post pretty frequently, and if you'd like to support, then I also have a Patreon. All the links are down below. Regardless, thank you for watching, and I will hopefully see you soon.